right, everybody, welcome into the AfterTaste movie reviews. Today we have a couple of guests with us to review It Chapter 2. Andy Muschietti's film came out a little while ago, actually, so it was a little bit of a late review, but we might get a little bit spoiler heavy in this. A little bit. We're not going to spoil everything, but more than likely this is going to be a spoiler review, and we will let you know right now to tune out if you don't want to know anything about this goofy clown. All right. I hate that sound. Perfect. So, to my right, we have Chelsea Rodriguez. How are you doing today, Chelsea?
I am doing great.
Doing great? Mm-hmm. All right. You excited to talk about It Chapter 2?
Very excited.
The movie from Andy Muschietti.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right. And on her, is it her right, my left? I don't know. Anyway, we got a new one to the desk here. Phil Bassini, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. Doing fantastic. We for sure didn't just film an episode of the movie podcast, available on Podcast One and Spotify. Shameless plugs. But let's get talking about this movie, It Chapter 2. Phil, what did you think about this movie?
I loved it. I mean, it's not how I normally would prefer most of my horror films, but I really did love it, yes.
You did love it? Awesome, man. Did you, Oh, there's something screaming outside. Pennywise is in the house.
Yeah.
Right. Poor scene. Poor kid in that one funhouse scene. We're not going to spoil that scene, I guess. But he had some problems.
Yeah. Oh, I almost felt worse for the girl with the birthmark on her face.
Oh.
She was just wanting friends, right?
Yeah.
She's been bullied her whole freaking life. And he she made a friend and a clown.
And he preyed on that. He was such a nice guy to her about it. It's like...
Such a douche, man. Yeah, it was bad. Chelsea, what did you think of that chapter 2?
I loved it. I really, really did. I've seen it 4 times.
4 times is a lot.
Yeah.
But I've been known to see movies that many times,
yeah.
If I really like it, for sure. That's good. Did you like it more than the first film? I know it's really crappy to, sit here and be like, did you like it more than the first movie?
It's hard to say because I was almost going to go back and rewatch part 1 last night, but I ended up not doing that. It's hard to say just because I had to see it to compare, but I really, really did love this movie a lot. There was just something about it that was, like you were saying, it's really different because it's a mainstream, it's a big budget horror movie, but
yeah, it's a studio film.
It's a studio film, but there's just something about it. It doesn't have the same horror tropes that you would see in other kind of big budget horror movies that just I can keep going back and rewatching.
I think the strong point of this film specifically, and there was quite a bit of it in the first film also, but they write these scares in, right? They don't play on cheap scares. They're genuinely written scares. It's visceral. They basically sit back and they say, how are we going to lead into this? What's going to scare them? And it's the storytelling of Andy Muschietti getting to the core of it, which is why this film is more special than a lot of basic Insidious films. Or if you like Insidious, good on you, right?
Yeah.
It's closer to a Conjuring-esque film where it's written than it is Happy Death Day. Phil.
A little note on that. The scripts for It Chapter 1 and 2 were written by Gary Dauberman, who penned Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, The Nun, and Annabelle Comes Home. And he actually directed Annabelle Comes Home.
That's amazing. See, I didn't know that at all. So they feel similar very much. So.
Yeah.
So this movie starts off, basically, the loser club's back, coming back to jury. What's the kid's name that calls him home? I'm so sorry. Mike.
Yeah.
Mike sees some issues arising, some suspicious murders happening in the town of Jerry. So he reaches out, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. They've done the thing after high school where you kind of drift apart a little bit. You get married, you get divorced. You have rough times, and he calls them home. And they all react a certain way. Then fear comes back. Repressed memories. When they left Jerry, they forgot. Right.
Yeah.
Basically, that was the gist of it all. They forgot. They were able to either through the magic of it all, or I think later in the movie they do mention that it is the fact that they forgot because Pennywise was still around. Right?
Yeah.
So they came back and they were reminded real fast over a very nice, I believe it was Chinese food dinner. Things happened. Legs popped out of fruits and things like that.
Eyes out of fortune cookies.
Eyes out of reminded real fast that this thing is a problem. They'll probably never be able to get back to any semblance of life without solving this problem. They're reluctant at first, right? Because it's a scary thing. But this film stars Bill Hader as I'm not a big member of the names of the Losers Club. So,
Richie Tozer.
So Richie Tozer, Bill Hader plays that.
Trash Mouth.
Trash Mouth. Good old kid. James McAvoy plays
Bill Denbrough.
I think I remember Bill's name, and then Jessica Chastain's Beth.
Beverly Marsh.
Wow,
Yeah.
Bev, that's where it was. I think they were saying Beth the whole time. So you have a cast of A-list actors coming into a film. James McAvoy off of Split. Jessica Chastain is one of the hardest working actors in the business right now. And Bill Hader is all over the freaking place. Any of you guys see Barry?
I still haven't watched Barry, but I
Barry's
really want to watch it.
I recommend it very, very much. It's kind of a dark comedy, which Bill Hader does very well. If you see this movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. What did you guys think of Bill Hader, first off?
Oh, he was definitely one of the parts of the movie that I didn't expect to like as much as I did, because I hadn't seen him in a more dramatic role like this, so I suppose I was just apprehensive, but I mean, I had no reason to be. He knocked it out.
Yeah, he was great, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he's been in some of these films that are a little bit more serious. Skeleton Twins. A lot of people like Skeleton Twins. Barry, the TV show, which is very, very popular right now, nominated for a trillion Emmys. It's a little bit more serious. It's a comedy, but it's a lot more serious, and he's definitely got the chops for it. But it's not mainstream known that Bill Hader can come out and make a performance and sit in like a lake and make the entire theater cry. Right?
Yeah. He said in an interview recently that this is, and I guess it's true because I can't seem to rack my brain around it, but apparently this is his first horror movie that he's ever done.
I could see it,
and I think he did it brilliantly. Him and someone else particularly broke my heart in terms of the performances.
Before I saw this film, and I didn't get to see this film opening weekend like I wanted to, but the thing I heard about it more than anything else was you may have problems with this or you may have problems with this, but Bill Hader is fantastic. And going into it, I had high expectations of it, and he still killed it. He still did really, really well. So they started to have some run-ins with Pennywise. He's doing he's being a rascal again, playing off their wildest fears. Specifically, Jessica Chastain had a really good scene in the bathroom there, which is kind of a hard one to watch, but her acting in that. You've read the books, right?
Not it, actually.
You haven't read it? You read it?
200 pages into it.
17,000 pages. Yeah, from what I hear, they did that scene really well. That scene was a hard one to read and a hard one to watch. So she did really well with that. They cut a few things out of this movie, which they can't show in mainstream films, obviously. Yep. So they each go on their journey, right, of their biggest fears, their worst moments, and when the exact moment that I forget. It was like they all went back to the exact moment of something. Do you remember what that was?
They were trying to find their artifact, and
like
it
their
has
tokens.
Yeah, they're trying to find their tokens, right?
Yeah.
So they all went on their own journeys. I do think that obviously I might be in the minority slightly. I think that the film, although they had really good scenes personally, I think they did start to fall apart a little bit when they weren't together.
Yeah.
Which is just my perspective on that. A lot of people did like the storyline. So do you like the individualistic journeys that they all had to go on there?
I do. I think that some of the flashback sequences could have been cut back a little bit, but at the same time, they're so necessary. So it's such a tough thing.
It's a huge book, and it deserved a 3-hour run.
Yeah.
So it was hard to cut back, but I think that some of the flashbacks and some of the arcs were really strong.
Yeah.
I think that Beverly's was very well crafted. But who was Richie's friend?
Eddie.
Eddie. I think Eddie's was a little bit it's kind of a bummer to say, but it was a little bit all over the place.
Yeah,
it didn't quite do what it needed to do.
Yeah, there was like one part like towards the end in that sequence where they had like a musical cue that was like really jarring.
Oh, was it the vomit scene?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just like,
And
why?
I will mention that one of the things that this movie and the last one had going for it was sound design.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire film, the sound design was... if you sat in a theater with full surround sound, the sound was amazing. And it really benefited the film. But the parts of them going on individual arcs, there was some hit and misses there. But they were electric when they got back together every single time.
Definitely.
I feel like a lot of that just has to do with the fact that the Losers Club is all like... I don't know, they all just have this charisma with each other.
Yeah.
Then that's part of their whole dynamic. Naturally, when you're separating them, I agree. It definitely takes away a little bit.
It takes away a little bit. I mean, I think it might have been able... I think more than anything, it was a little bit of not being able to cut back a little bit on the scenes or convey it in a different type of sense or way.
I will say this, though. One of the scenes where one of the characters is going off on their own gave me one of my favorite spooky moments in the whole movie, and that was Bill Skarsgård, no makeup, just doing his thing.
Yeah.
Jessica Chastain, right? That was her flashback there?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
All over the trail. No, that wasn't it, was it?
Oh, that sequence and everything?
Yeah, that wasn't hers, was it?
No, it was. It was when she was running down the hall and she stopped at the door and he like taunted her like one last time and she's like, "Screw you."
Yeah, they worked really good with her throughout this movie. She had a lot of good scenes. Goodness, I'm losing my thought a little bit here, but yeah. So I think that they got back together. I think that unfortunately, Mike was more of a storytelling conduit than he was an actual character. I think he was probably a lot more fleshed out in the books than he was in this. I hear that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
It did feel a little bit like an expositionary tool.
I do think that...
I love the actor, though. Isaiah, so good.
He's the Old Spice guy, not Terry Crews.
Not Terry
Crews, but the Old Spice, the other one. Which is the only thing I knew from before. Hopefully people will remember him from this and he'll find some more work doing some mainstream stuff. Because he was good with what he had.
Yeah.
But, he was very much an expositionary dump with a lot of his conversations. And I think his flashback, more than anybody else's, was the messiest. And I mean, obviously with how this movie gets kind of weird and crazy towards the end, it becomes it makes sense why his specific storyline would kind of be a little bit crazy. Yeah. I think it was a little bit unclear when they were discussing when his exposition was basically being discussed. Yeah. But yeah, I think that it was very, very good. And towards I think the movie all in all was really good, though, to be honest. So we're gonna go towards the end of the film a little bit here. The climax film happens. It very much is. It turns into a little bit more of a sci-fi film, I think, towards the end of the film, just because that's the natural progression of the book. Obviously, it gets
very cosmic.
It's very cosmic, right?
Without the turtle.
There's no turtle, right?
Speaking of cosmic, I want to point out this brilliant transition shot that went up into Stan's puzzle that looked kind of like a constellation.
Yes, with like the puzzle piece and everything like that.
Oh my gosh, that made my inner film geek just like grin ear to ear, man. Yeah. That was great.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of took me back to the projector scene in the first movie a little bit, where it was kind of shot where Pennywise's face was coming through slowly of the projector. Flat. It's definitely different, but it's very much a direction of Andy Muschietti to figure that kind of stuff out.
Oh, did you know that he was a storyboard artist before directing?
No.
Apparently that's one of the reasons why he is, like, I guess, such a keen eye with shots is because he was a storyboard artist and everything.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Fun fact, Andy Muschietti was the tall Italian in this movie.
In both scenes in the pharmacy.
In both scenes in the pharmacy. Also, who was the guy that made the special, Stephen King was in this movie.
Yes, he was. That he was.
He was.
Just showed up for a second to show a Stephen King, and this is my book that I wrote. And this is how you get my stuff right. Yeah, I'm just running in circles with this a little bit. But it does get cosmic towards the end. And then the ending, for what I thought, was fun. It was a good ending, right? Yeah. But it did fall a little bit into the traps of becoming I suppose this is how the book went as well, but kind of very much a level by level boss battle trope of getting through one level to one level. That's very much a story type of way to tell something, but it did get a little bit of like, all right, this happened, all right, this happened, all right, this happened, now boss battle. Boss battle is in this big scene that you could tell they spent all their money on. And so it did run into that a little bit, but I do think each level had its moments specifically. I know that Bill Hader had a really good scene with his boy
James Ransom,
James Ransom, yes.
aka Eddie Casper.
Eddie Casper. They're running away and they come to the doors from the first movie where it's like not scary at all, kind of scary, and like, or whatever it was. And that the humor came through there. I think that was really well shot.
Yeah,
just like the first movie actually had a really good scene there as well. Did you guys have any standouts from the? I'll call it the third act kind of boss battle in general.
You go first.
Let's see. I think aside from like the very end, when they're defeating Pennywise, because you know how essentially he throws.
Spoiler! What? His head turns into a balloon. Oh my god!
Because essentially he separates them all one last time before they have to come together.
Yes.
I did really like. Are we in spoiler territory right now? Or?
Yeah, I mean we're loose. At this point,
okay.
I said his head turns into little tiny balloons.
Okay.
Once you hit that level,
I have to say, I really liked the side by side shot of when both Ben and Beverly, their, I guess you can say, respective doors came open and they had to come together and they had to lock hands. I just thought that whole sequence.
I will say as well, I did forget about this, but the chemistry between Ben and Beverly throughout the film, it's basically the trope of hit and miss or just miss.
Yeah.
That story type. Kind of like in, I don't know if you guys watched The Office for the first 4 or 5 seasons. Very much the same type of chemistry between Pam and Jim.
Yeah.
Where it's she doesn't know this, he feels this way.
Yeah.
You can all see it as visual people.
Yeah.
And
he's pining so hard.
The way that they tell the story, I think, was very strong.
Yeah.
By the end of the movie, when Ben does end up with Beverly, spoiler alert, on a yacht, still with 8-pack abs.
Oh yeah, that shot.
Yeah. Is very, very believable, and it gives it a nice ending just because it's so well done. There was the one scene where she brings up the
the poem.
The poem, and she mentions how she's really kind of cherished this, and she's really thought about this a lot, and then she says, Bill.
Yeah.
You feel it.
You're oh.
They set it up so well, and you feel so bad for Ben in that moment.
Yeah.
You just want him to say it was me, but
yeah.
Of course they can't let that tension off because they have to pay it off.
Yeah.
Again. But thanks for bringing that up because I legit thought that was one of the best parts of the movie was that chemistry.
Yeah, just the way that was filmed, because I did watch a little, I guess, behind the scenes features of the set pieces, and you did see how essentially they had to create a rotating box for them to shoot with the bloody bathroom versus him in the dirt pit and everything. And I just thought the whole culmination to that was really, really good. Everything like that. And of course, Eddie's departure and with Bill Hader, and that broke my heart.
Eddie.
Oh, my sweet Eddie.
So what's Eddie's actor's name again? You said
James Ransom.
James Ransom. Ransom or Ransom?
Ransom.
Ransom. He's kind of an actor that I've never seen before.
Have you never seen Sinister?
I've never.
He's the
deputy.
Yeah, he's the detective so and so.
Yeah, deputy so and so.
Yeah, the deputies, of course.
Yeah. I think some people may know him in the people that are in that circles and stuff, but for me necessarily, I've never seen this actor before.
That's totally fine.
And I think that either he's just liked how he plays this character, or he's a fantastic actor. He plays his child counterpart perfectly.
Yeah,
I agree.
He looks so much alike.
He looks so much alike him, and he played the character precisely. Every little quip, every little thing he did was precise. It was amazing, really.
I have a little comment about his character in the beginning of his arc there.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm 200 pages into the book, but I got far enough into the book to where it was describing his relationship with his wife, because the book kind of sets it up like the original miniseries, where it's a lot of flashbacks, but you start out with them getting the calls.
Yeah.
So in the book, it describes that Eddie's wife could quote unquote practically be his mother.
Oh,
Like he married someone very much like her, and I mean, but there's all this description in the book, but I almost jumped out of my seat in chapter 2 when they showed his wife, and it's the same woman that plays his mom.
Yes. Oh my god! I knew you were gonna bring that up. Yes.
Wait, what? Is it the same person that plays it?
Yes. Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah, the same woman
Holy
plays
crap,
his wife.
That's why there's this like when like she's
That's amazing.
like when she's like like hanging up and everything, and you see like Mike's caller ID. He's like, "Okay, love you, mommy," and she's like, "What?" That's like a little inside joke.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I had no idea.
It's same actress.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, that particular.
That's really funny.
Yeah, that detail. Oh man, I love that.
Initiate, man. He pulls the plugs. Yeah. Yeah, this movie has a lot of things. It deserves, even though it's a 3-hour movie, it deserves a second watch. Just because there's so much to it, the little tiny things. Very much like a lot of the films that I think deserve second watchings, like Get Out a couple years ago deserved a couple watchings because you need a lot of it. A lot of horror films, Hereditary, I think, was also a fantastic film to watch a second and third time. Even Midsummer, Ari Aster's film that came out this last year. You know, like it or hate it. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it. It's worth that second watch just to get the little tiny details.
Yeah.
And this movie is very much the same way. So I think that's very, very a lot going for it. And it made quite a bit of money. Like I said, we're doing this review not directly after like a lot of people do it because we're just getting started and stuff. But it did do pretty well. It didn't do as well as the first one because the first one was an absolute phenomenon.
Yeah.
It broke every single October box office record.
September.
My bad. So it's like September 5th. I remember that weekend just reading articles that night, Saturday night going into Sunday, and they're like, "Wow, it's gonna go over 100." Which 100 million for October was like 40 million over the record, and it came in at 135 million. Another one of those things where it's like you see it with the Endgame. It's the anticipation and the word of mouth.
Yeah.
With Endgame, people were really excited for it. You hear it could do more than Infinity Wars. You go to sleep Saturday night, and you're like, wow, it's going to do better than that. And then you wake up Sunday morning, it did $350 million instead of 270 or something like that. It was very much one of those very surprising phenomenons, and it did really well for a lot of places as well. It did really well in China, and it did really well in a couple other demographics. So let's just get towards the end a little bit here. They do get past these little levels, and they go through their little story arc. And they get to this boss battle, which is kind of where some people did fall off a little bit because it was so cosmic and crazy. I thought it was awesome. I had a really fun time, which is what they're going for. It had a lot of it had the twist there where Mike was a little bit, they put him off as a little bit crazy, but then they found the real way to what they needed to do, and then they kind of progressed into the battle, what I'll call it. Battle of sorts. Turned into some name calling.
Bullying a clown.
They bullied a clown. At this point, we did start to lose Eddie a little bit.
Yes.
Eddie was priorly stabbed by a huge spider leg. And then he walked like a mile and a half in the underground caverns with a hole in his heart.
Yeah.
So Eddie had the biggest heart of them all. So he's down, and then it gets really, really emotional towards the end. They fight him, and they realize that as whatever they do to this thing, it's only going to get up, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And then they find, through the progression of figuring out what's going on, it gets really emotional, and then they find out that you got to make him feel small, right? So it turns into a name calling contest. He kind of takes it like a child and just loses. To be completely blunt, he goes, "Oh no!"
He's like,
"How dare you call me not funny?
I'm the eater of worlds.
You're just a clown. You're just a clown." Yeah, and they find the true meaning of how to beat this evil, and then he gets real small. His head turns into its old tiny balloon, and they rip his goddamn heart out. Sorry for being so intense to the viewers, but they rip his heart out. He dies.
Yeah.
they defeat it, Pennywise, and the process also losing Eddie. And this comes to the scene in the movie that I believe is probably the most well done and the most emotional, that a lot of people left the theater. I had a lot of people crying in my showing. That's when they had to leave Eddie behind in the caverns, and they came out, and they ended up back together in the lake.
Yeah.
Where they were back when they were young. And they all jumped in, and some of them started to feel some relief, but then you just kind of see Bill Hader just in like one of the I'm not gonna go extreme and say it's like, but it was true emotional cinematic acting. It seemed, as a guy, Bill Hader, it's kind of like when you see I don't know if you guys like your parents, I don't know, but it's like seeing your dad cry, right, or something like that. It's like seeing Tom Hanks cry, or somebody who has brought you so much laughter and joy, and he does it so well. It's so believable that it does move a lot of people. That scene get any of you guys?
Oh, definitely.
Actually, I mean, as much as I love that scene, the one that got me the most is when he goes back to the bridge and recarves the name in there. That's the one that hit me. The look on his face, no words, no nothing, just his face, and he sold it so well, like powerful.
It just hurts so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody gets it. There's a lot of Bill Hader love for this movie because he really made it. But all in all, do you guys recommend this film to some other people? Probably.
Yes,
absolutely. It's really well done. It's really, really well done, actually, for such a mainstream and safe horror film too. Yeah. Like, it's made. I mean, and that's kind of where I'm like, not going in 100% into chapter 2. I kind of like it when my horror films take like much bigger risks with this and that, because I've seen so many at this point. It's like I love it, chapter 2, but it's safe. It's very safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my original reaction after watching the movie itself was that I did enjoy it. I would recommend it. It is a more visceral and more well-told horror story. As a fan of horror films that were some of the classics, the old Halloweens, they were really well-told stories as well as they were horror films. I'd recommend this to any horror fan, true horror fan, as well as the mainstream audience for the most part. Yeah. But I would say, I don't like to compare one to the other because the first, it was very much a story of coming together, coming of age.
Yeah.
From the point of view of children, there's that it has going for it. And I thought originally that it too was really good, but I would say that almost it was so strong that if you were to sit down with your kids in 20 years and show them some of your favorite horror films of the time, you could get away almost with just showing them chapter 1, which, like I said, they're very different films, and they're very different story parts of the book, but I thought chapter 1 had a more centralized story on its own.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like as a film, it stands on its own a lot more easily than the second one does. Yeah. I mean, naturally, the second one requires the foundation of the first film.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, like, the thing that disappointed me the most about the first film was very much remedied in the second, and I wanted more Bill Skarsgård being the clown, like, rather without the CGI masking it or anything like that, which was fine. I mean, they have to interpret an interdimensional being somehow, but like, I just wanted him giving a physical and vocal performance a lot more, and they brought it this time.
Yeah, no, he was a main character of his own film this time.
I mean, it was really kind of just him being a jerk that I wanted more of. I mean, that scene where Ben's in the clubhouse, adult Ben at the end, and he kind of goes up, and no matter how many push-ups, you're still a fat little loser.
Oh, like, you're so mean.
It's like, whoa, like, he just ripped into him.
Yeah, mean guy. Oh, man. Yeah, Bill Skarsgård, he was a high point. He's played this character so well that he's gonna be remembered for a very long time for it.
Oh yeah.
And he deserves every part of it because I saw him on a talk show, like, I think a week or two after the movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as there is CGI on Pennywise's face, because, yeah, I mean, his head is like a jelly bean that sometimes changes shapes and does weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the practical looks of Pennywise is him.
Yeah.
He literally did it on the talk show. He's like, watch this. And he just went like, He looked like Pennywise.
Yeah.
Like, it's a performance that a lot of people will not understand. It's a lot Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah.
It's not just CGI.
Mm-hmm.
He was excellent as Pennywise. And there's also a lot of rumors going around currently that, unfortunately, like with all cinematic franchises, there is chances that they might be going into Pennywise's backstory. Not backstory, but they might be going back into Drury into an original story.
Really?
Which means Bill Skarsgård could reprise his role as Pennywise once again, which is a scary thought, obviously. But it would be kind of nice to see Pennywise interact with kind of the older, witches days. Because the Drury had problems for years, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
going back to, like, the freaking 1800s,
Yeah.
circling the
whole
castle.
town.
Like, so they might go back, unfortunately, because you gotta beat a horse till it's dead, unfortunately, because that's what they do with money. But the only redeeming factor to me of that is that Bill Skarsgård would be playing it again.
It makes sense, because did you hear or ever see Hulu's show Castle Rock that came out last year?
No.
Because essentially, like, that's a Stephen King centered story, again, in Maine, and Bill Skarsgård is in that, too. And it's a bunch of, like, Stephen King, like, connected stories, like, oh, all in the same town, and everything like that. So, it makes sense.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. But as for It Chapter 2, I think we all enjoyed it and recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to say on the movie, guys? Any scenes that stick out for you want to talk about?
I mean, I already mentioned it once, but the transition shots were brilliant. I mean, not just the puzzle piece one, but I mean, there was the one where it was Henry Bowers, the balloon, kind of following him. Yeah, that transition shot was great. There was one that led into adult Bev going back to her dad's. That was really good. Just little bits here and there like that. I was picking up on a lot of stuff like that. It was really cool.
I also enjoyed, like, the humor.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good
course.
humor in this film.
Yeah.
And it wasn't from, like, a stand-up comedy type of way. It was very much storytelling.
There was physical comedy.
There was a lot of physical
comedy. Like when poor Ben, like, fell, like, to get to the clubhouse. He's like, I'm okay!
I'm fine. There was the poor Funhouse kid showing up. That's not humor, but there's humor in it. It's well-written humor.
Yeah.
It's like him showing up and trying to get an autograph from Bill Hader. Bill Hader just yelling in his freaking face.
Poor child.
And poor child's getting traumatized. He shows up on the street, and James McAvoy's like, go inside, tell your family no matter what, you have to leave this town. And then
kid's having a week.
Then him chasing him into a funhouse where he gets murdered.
Yeah.
James McAvoy's fault.
There is something I did notice, because I've seen it a couple of times, is there was a series of behind-the-scenes photos where apparently when after Eddie and Bill have their, like, collective, like, run-ins with Pennywise, and then they meet back at the inn, is... in the behind-the-scenes photo it was right when after Bill got his bike back, and then Eddie comes out of the pharmacy covered in the goo. They're supposed to, like, run into each other, and then actually Eddie's supposed to, like, get on the back of the bike and, like, go with him.
Oh, nice.
But they ended up cutting it for whatever reason. But if you go back and watch the movie, there is, like, a quick shot where Bill's, like, on the bike riding, like, from, like, the street and, like, past that brick mural that you saw in the first one. Yeah. And supposedly it was supposed to happen there, because then in the next shot you see Bev in the inn. Eddie walks in. She's like, what happened? He's like, I don't want to talk about it. And then Bill walks in seconds later, and apparently they cut that scene. So I saw it now.
That's good.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I also really liked how they ended the movie, too. They all back together, looking into the glass there and trying to change it back into their younger selves. And brings it all full circle.
The voiceover really got to me when you hear, like, the promise. Like,
and then, like, the straight up, there's a letter at the end, was it, that he read? Yeah, very well done. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's going to do it for us today on our AfterTaste movie reviews. Chelsea, where can we find you on your life? life? What are you doing these days?
I'm on this website called coffee.com that is spelled with a K-O-IF, and I am taking commissions for artwork. So you can find me there. It's Oshaluna Coffee, which is Oceluna, and then my Instagram, which is littlechels25, LILCHELSS25.
Awesome. And just in case you guys are wondering, Chelsea is very, very talented. She's excellent at what she does, and I recommend you absolutely go out and check out her work and have her draw something for you, man. She is really good. I saw a drawing. What was the drawing you showed me a couple?
Was it the Iron Man one?
Yeah, it showed me an Iron Man one. It was so good. I want it on my wall, but I don't have any room on my walls.
We can find room.
That's not what my wife says. She says you can't have anything else. It's my office, damn it. Anyway, so very good to have you, Chelsea. Hope to have you back soon.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, you're a boring guy. Nothing going on, right?
Whoa, no.
I'm joking. You're a good
Of course
guy.
not.
So Phil's a good guy. Got some music coming out maybe in a couple months.
Oh, I'm hoping for it. Well, we'll give it a few months, see what happens. I'm working on it, though. I'm trying to get some more music out there.
Do you have any music from like prior bands or anything?
Yeah. I was in a band called Predation, and we have an EP on Bandcamp called Truthless. It used to be on Spotify and Amazon and iTunes, but it's not anymore. It was like a yearly thing that we paid for, and once the band split, we just didn't do it. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Check them out. I've listened to them. They're real fun. Phil's very, very talented. You scream, you sing.
I scream and growl and make all kinds of spooky noises.
Spooky noises because you like spooky stuff.
I've been working up the courage to sing, and I think I maybe have the nuts to do it at a karaoke thing, but nothing further than that.
We'll do that. We'll have a karaoke night one of these nights, and it'll be fun. Once again, I'm your host Barno here. You can find me on Twitter at Barno_922, and check us out at Maybe It's a Network on Twitter as well as our Facebook page. Our Twitter handle for that is Maybe It's a Network. Network spelled NETWRK because Twitter hates you. And that's going to be it for us. And we will see you on Monday with a new episode of AfterTaste Movie Podcast and more reviews to come down the line. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.